Feed super time.
Good evening, all, and welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this ninth episode of What Makes a Knight. I am Lord Kal-bardr Gellir, Companion Radiant Cross, Companion Argent Comet, Companion Argent Lamp, Companion Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, for this series, I am, of course, joined by an absolute SCA legend. You may know him from the SCA Coach's Corner or from the fighting fields of Artemisia and the known world. Duke Sean Kirkpatrick Tarragon. Good evening, Your Grace.
Good evening, Cal. Thanks again for having me. I am Duke Sir Sean Kirkpatrick Tarragon. I've been a knight for 34 years, just about. I've had 7 of my squires added to the Order of Chivalry, and we've been really enjoying this series. We'd originally had 8 episodes planned, and then people keep asking questions that we felt deserved a whole series. And one of the first questions we got at the very beginning of this series was, what about Masters at Arms? And so tonight we're going to have a talk about Fealty. And for this episode, there's one person that came to mind that I really wanted to have on for this episode, and that is my good friend, Duke Balfar from the East. He is a Master at Arms, and I will ask him to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Balfar from the East Kingdom up in New England. Became Chivalry in 93. I've had 4 squires become Chivalry on their own. Been king 4 times and was asked to come on by Sean. Here we are.
Wow.
There you go. Thank you for that, Your Grace. Yeah. So it's interesting that just the difference in how you phrase things right there. I'm looking forward to hearing some answers to the questions tonight. Okay. Because of just wording. And I don't think we realize how much words matter. I mean, we talk about it, but words matter. The fact that you said you've been Chivalry and your squires have been Chivalry and not knights. As default, the rest of us say knights generally. And that's such a, wow. Okay. Anyways. So this came up in the very first episode. It came up in the second episode. It's come up in almost everyone since. What about Masters of Arms? And, we addressed it. Sean and I addressed this very early on. That for us, for the purpose of the episode, there is no difference, right? We chose to call the show "What Makes a Knight" because it was a cute, catchy title, and we're talking about knighthood in the medieval sense and in the historical sense. Knights are knights. It doesn't matter. In our game, we have differentiated the two. But realistically, when you're thinking of the sword and shield and the plate armor and the knight.
Yep.
Right? That's what we meant. But then we started talking about it. Okay, what's the difference? Right? Realistically, it's Fealty. That was the thing.
Yep.
So I think that's where for this episode we chose Fealty as the topic because that's a part of what makes a knight, right? Is their Fealty.
Yep, true enough.
Or in your case, that's what makes a Master of Arms is the lack of Fealty. Right?
Well, and it's not necessarily right. It's a choice. It isn't necessarily lack of.
Right. So I think let's discuss that first. So I think we have we have a knight and we have a Master of Arms. I'd like to hear from both of you, sort of why you made the choice initially. What was your driving force? And let's sort of talk about the difference. So Balfar, if you'd like to go first.
Okay. In my case, a lot of it had to do with where I came up in the SCA. In the north of the East Kingdom, we literally had more Masters at Arms than knights. And the Masters at Arms, for the most part, were the ones that traveled. They went around, taught people. A lot of the knights taught their own people and tended to stay in their areas. Like we had 2 in Carolingia, which is the Boston area, but you hardly ever saw them leave the area. Where we had Masters at Arms from Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and they were everywhere. They're the ones that came out on the field. They're the ones that taught everybody. They're all the ones we interacted with. And that, right out of the gate, kind of leaves that flavor in your mouth, as it were, of just like, okay, these are the guys that we see that come up to you on the field and just flat out give you advice,
Right.
Hey, I got you with that shot, but here's how you want to block that next time. little stuff, and it sticks with you. It really does.
Well, I would say too that especially in the East Kingdom, Farrell von Holstern, you were
Yep.
squired to Farrell, weren't you?
I was squire to Farrell. Yep.
Yeah, Master Farrell von Holstern was he was like the second master of the East. Is that right? Or like earlier,
I want to say third.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people don't realize is our Duke Visivold started out as a master at arms.
Right.
He switched over.
And Farrell was such a driving force in teaching people how to fight.
Constantly. Constantly.
Yeah. And I'd say for me, the choice was made similarly. When I showed up to fighter practice the first day, I saw knights. And we did have a couple of masters in arms in our barony, but the people that I saw first were knights. And starting as a not quite teenager, that's one of the things that we see about knights compared to the other orders is that you can ask a third grader what a knight is, and they have this image of what that is, but you tell a third grader that you're a laurel or you're a pelican, and they have no idea what that means. They don't have that association. So knighthood is one of those tangible links that we have to the Middle Ages, and the fact that it happens to come with a lifetime of fealty didn't really seem like a barrier to me. And I wanted to be a knight, and if that means I'm in fealty, then that's the deal. So that's kind of how I made my choice, and especially being squired to Brian, who was, Brian was a knight. He was squired to a knight as well, and Robert, wasn't squired to anybody. So most of the people that I saw were knights, and the masters at arms that we had were kind of novelty, and I mean that in the sense that they were kind of other, but they weren't like, they didn't stand out one way or another. There wasn't vanilla. Yeah, exactly. There wasn't any bad thing about masters, but there wasn't anything that really just said, I want to be that. When I understood the fealty component of that, I think I had talked to a couple of them. One of which was Master Kveldov, who was former Navy SEAL, and
gotcha.
He had sworn an oath of fealty previously, and wasn't ready to swear an oath of fealty again. And so that was part of his personal journey and part of his choice.
Right. So okay. So the two stories I just heard were identical.
Yep.
Right. So I think we can obviously right there we can end the episode and be like, okay, there is no difference. Let's just go home.
Right. It gets a little more complex.
But obviously there's more. Okay.
A little bit.
So fealty is the thing. So I know in people I've talked to, the reason they've made the choice, so the sort of other reason other than just that's what you're exposed to, is either religious reasons or personal reasons, or like so that, he was already under some oath of fealty.
Right. Yep.
Did not allow them to swear another one. So that's seems to be the other big determining factor. Is some other reason on a personal level that you can't swear fealty, therefore you become a master of arms, not a knight. Okay. So I think that one we can't really address directly from either of you, since neither of you made the choice that reason. Correct. That's such a specific thing of, if you have
that's strictly individual.
Right. Yeah. And I have some personal opinions about the requirement of swearing fealty in general that I'm going to withhold a little bit of, because we're talking about the idea of fealty. But we might get into it in a minute. But so let's talk about fealty and what it means, and sort of the differences in the two. So we had a question submitted before the show, and I thought we'll start with this. How does your oath of fealty improve the SCA, and why is it a key requirement of the dream as we know it? And then I'll sort of amend it for Sean specifically. Why are knights required to swear fealty as part of that? So actually, your great Sean, why don't you let's lead on that one.
Okay, so as far as how it affects the dream itself, it doesn't. I don't think it changes the game of the SCA. It is a very personal thing. Fealty changes how I play the SCA, but I don't think that it necessarily changes, kind of the dream. And that part of that dream moment is what we often refer to as the dream of the SCA is having those moments where you are transported in time and you really are a knight on the fields of Poitiers, and having those moments where it's real, right, where you can really feel it. And so I had some time ago I had asked Master Frederick of Holland, Fleeg, who was at the first event.
Yep.
I asked him a question that had popped up because when you think about it, we often think that masters are the other because they don't swear fealty. Well, it turns out that knights are kind of the other because we do. No other order is required
Yep.
to swear fealty or is in fealty in perpetuity, right? The Laurels, Pelicans, Order of Defense, Masters in Arms, they all have fealty as an option. So really, it's like knights are the kind of the odd ones out, even though there's 2,000 of us. We're kind of so within the order of chivalry, masters stand out for not doing it, and knighthood and fealty is the default, and that's kind of why it's kind of seen as kind of the other. But we're the ones that are the other. All the other orders have the option, and many other Pelicans, Laurels, etc. swear fealty all the time. Right? It's not a big deal for them. But I'd asked Fleeg about like why is that? Why is that? Not so much why is it that masters don't or are not required to, but I was like, why is it required for us as knights to swear fealty? And the answer that I recall him giving me, and hopefully he would correct me if I'm wrong in my interpretation of this, but basically it comes down to the fact that when we created this society, knighthood was the thing that we knew, right? Again, it was that tangible link to the Middle Ages, and we knew that knights existed in period, and what we knew about them was that knights were in fealty to the crown.
Right.
And so that's kind of how knights. That's why knights are required to be in fealty to the crown, because that's one of the requirements of the knight in the period, for the most part. So how it how it kind of affects the dream for me, and it's hard to say. It's hard to. I don't know that it's. I don't know that it significantly changes for me because I am in service to the crown, and just as Balfar is in service to the crown. And for me, and again, the difference is the option of fealty, not the absence of fealty. And it's not an option for me. And to me, that carries certain obligations, and it duties, rights, and responsibilities, right? One of those responsibilities is to give counsel to the crown. The chain of fealty is something that goes both ways. It is a contract. It is, I am in fealty to the crown, and the crown is in fealty to me as well. They swear to, protect me and my household, and to serve the kingdom as best they may. And so they have that obligation when I see something that needs to be said. I have the right and I have the responsibility to say that to my crown, and my fealty is part of that. It is, they're in the West Kingdom, they talk about the speak and be silent part, right? That that's a two-way street. The speak and the be silent part is a two-way street. When I tell my crown, I think you're fucking up, and they say, well, that's my right to fuck up. Like, well, by all means, you go right ahead, Your Majesty. But duly noted. So,
well, and we have a follow-up question about that that I'll get to in a second. But Balfar, so what's your opinion on the fealty and its requirements as part of the dream?
I agree with Sean that for the most part, it doesn't add or take away much. The only place that I've seen it do make a difference is literally on the field.
Right.
I mean, I have literally been there, had a king turn it, look at me and said, listen, we're about to get flanked. I want to take you and your guys and stop them. And I've looked over and like, wait a minute, you want the 10 of us to stop 40 of them? He said, yes. Okay. I grabbed my guys. This is going to suck, guys, but we're going to hold them up as long as we can. And we went. That's really the only place I've ever seen where it kind of makes a difference.
Right.
To me, I didn't feel there's no way of saying no. I simply pointed out, dude, we're not going to survive this. If this is what you want, cool. And he's like, yeah, I need that. Okay, here we go. Later.
But definitely you're a speed bump at best. But
oh, yeah. And we knew it going in.
Right.
You know, he looked at me and he knew what he was asking, and I knew what he was asking. I just said, clarify this. Okay.
Okay.
We're off. We're doing it. But aside from that, I don't see that it really changes much of anything as far as the dream goes. If you're not there to see something like that happen, you never know that kind of thing happens.
Right.
Yeah. You know, as far as like Sean said, it's as far as like giving advice to the crown and doing stuff like that. I've done that my entire career. I've sworn fealty 4 times, twice because I was warlord. I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm kind of working for you. Should probably have something visible stating that. But it doesn't change how I do anything, whether I'm in fealty or not. It's one of the reasons I kind of chose Master at Arms. I mean, in all honesty, I was an unbelted king the first time. I saw knights that I looked at and I said, there is no way that guy's going to swear fealty to somebody who's not already knighted. You know, I mean, I'd be doing courts and I'm just like, he's not coming up here. There's no way.
Right.
More times than not, I was right. So my theory is instead of talking about it, what if I always just did it? No fanfare, no big deal. The king says he needs something done, or the queen. Okay. I mean, part of my fealty is if you need it and I can do it, you have but to ask. And I mean it.
Right.
I mean, a big thing about me is I always tell, like, whenever I teach my guys, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And that's actually really interesting too. The fact that you were an unbelted king. And I wonder how much that affected your outlook versus others.
Probably I'd say like 30-40%.
Yeah.
I mean, I was leaning there hard, having seen people, you know, like I said, the guys that I saw coming up in the SCA,
right?
The ones that taught, the ones that went out there and just grabbed your average Joe Schmo and just like, hey, buddy, you want to know how to do that a little bit better? I mean, you see that over and over, and it sticks.
Right. But realistically, as I sort of mentioned, that was sort of the fact they were wearing a baldric or a belt had nothing to do with that. You just happen to have really good people.
Yes.
In that area.
Yep.
Right.
Believe me, I got friends that are knights that do the exact same thing all the time. It's just when I was up and coming, there were more masters around than knights from where I was at. Now, if I went south of anywheres around here, down through New York and into New Jersey and stuff, there were knights everywhere.
Right.
There were some really, really great guys.
All right, so both of you sort of mentioned the idea of allegiance to crown as part of fealty, right? And that seems to be the overarching theme of fealty to crown. And so, for the record, I also swear fealty, and Meridier's popular swears fealty, or we have the option to. I know that's not common in other kingdoms. That's why I bring it up.
We do.
Yeah, so I know it's sort of hit and miss. I know I mentioned that to some folks, and I think in the West, and they're like, "What?" And I was like,
"No, we don't."
Yeah. So we have the option here. Anybody can swear fealty. The knights are required, and the kingdom officers are required, and of course the landed baron and baronesses are required.
Yep.
But the rebels can. So I have never not sworn fealty, because I think that's part of, for me to speak to the dream question, was part of my I'm living in your lands, I'm serving my crown. That's the role playing experience, right?
Yep.
For me, that's what swearing fealty is. It's the role play. It's part of that thing. Because I know that's been the argument from some people I've heard from, like, oh, well, my persona wouldn't have had a king and wouldn't have sworn fealty because I'm a Viking warrior, blah, whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Insert
Whatever.
persona reason here. You're right. Your persona
You
in
can
that
make
time
up
period
excuses.
that. Right. But I'm a Meridian warrior living in this time period, regardless of what time period my persona is from.
Exactly.
Right? But that's a persona difference of opinion
no.
that comes up. But yeah, so that's interesting. But let's talk about a little bit about fealty and what it means in the thing. And His Grace Christopher brought up a really good question here. Do you view fealty as to the kingdom, the crown, the people wearing the crown, or some other variant of that? So what is the actual fealty applying to directly? But Duke Balfar, I'll let you go first on this one.
For actual fealty, most everybody I've ever seen and experienced swear fealty to the king and queen, and thereby the crown of that kingdom.
Okay.
When I was coming up, one of the things that I was always taught by Master Farrell is no matter what, we fight for and we do everything we can for the kingdom. It's the kind of subtle difference kind of thing. The people I've seen swear fealty, they always do swear fealty to, sometimes they name them. Sometimes it is just like, the crown of the East in my case, because it's the East. But I was brought up, learning from Farrell that the kingdom always comes first. You never know. A king can be a jerk. But no matter what, we do what we do for the kingdom.
Yeah, for me, I am swearing fealty to the kingdom. So to the crown and the kingdom, not to the person. I will give homage to individuals, a king and queen, but I'm swearing fealty to. So I look at it as swearing fealty to, and I know this is just kind of objectifying a thing, but the crown itself, okay. Because to me, the crown itself is the embodiment of the people of the kingdom, right? It is the symbol of the people of our kingdom. And so when I'm swearing fealty to the crown, I am in my mind, I am swearing fealty to the rest of the kingdom.
Right.
I am swearing to uphold the kingdom laws in Kapora and to treat everybody with grace and dignity, regardless of the rank and station. And so for being able to use the crown itself as an embodiment of the people, also helps sometimes when you have a crown that you're not really, when you have a king and or queen that you're not really crazy about. It is a lot easier for me to say, well, I'm not swearing fealty to these two people. I'm swearing fealty to 1,000 other people, like the rest of the kingdom as a whole. And that's part of why when I step up as crown, we don't have the tradition of the unbroken line of succession, because we come from Maidenveld, where you take the crowns off and you surrender the crowns and you come in later and get those. So we don't have the king takes off the crown and puts it back on the king, right? We don't do that. In fact, that's only happened once in our history, and that's a totally different story, but it's a good one. So when the crowns are presented to me to swear fealty to the kingdom, I have always had a member of the populace, generally a non-peer, sometimes somebody who doesn't even have an AOA. I will have that person hold the crown for me. And as they're standing in front of me, I will kneel before that member of the populace and put my hands on the crown to swear my oath of fealty. And that, to me, has always been the way that I can essentially subjugate myself before the people.
Right.
And as a reminder that it's not about me, it's about the kingdom. And it is this embodiment that this simple member of the populace is holding, usually a fairly new member who thinks that well, I'll never be able to be part of the coronation because I'm a nobody, right? And so being able to take somebody who's fairly new, who also kind of gets what we're doing, and being able to kind of elevate them for even just a moment, to have them take part in what to me is absolutely the most important part of a coronation ceremony, is swearing fealty to the people. So I definitely swear fealty to the crown as a representation, as an embodiment of the people as a whole.
That's interesting. And that's actually one of the things I've heard. So I have a friend here, Meridies, that doesn't swear fealty and can't swear fealty because of religious reasons, which actually causes problems. We have a one of our grant level orders has an oath that goes along with it as well. It's not an oath of fealty, but it's part of it's a oath of brotherhood or something or other, that's also required. And so this person can't join that order or become a member of become a knight because of her religious exemptions. And when I specifically talked to them about it, it was because even the idea of swearing an oath to a thing was not allowed, right? So the crown becoming a thing, becoming an object, it can't reciprocate. That was an interesting. That was one of the sort of caveats. And then there was also the not being able to swear to something that they can't actually uphold. And realistically, our oath of fealty is a little flighty. If you really, read down to the, in living and dying till the world ends, sort of like parts of that, and at least in Meridies, how ours runs. That was always one of the sort of problems they had. And so that's interesting that for you it's a symbol of the people, which I completely agree with, and that's my sort of personal opinion as well. Is I'm not swearing fealty to the dude or the dude and duess in the chairs. It's the hats they're wearing as a symbol of my kingdom. So I track that. That's interesting. So from the other side, so what does fealty mean from the crown? So Sean, you kind of touched on this earlier about the protecting the people, protecting your household, right? So what does it mean for you directly, and then sort of what does that realistically mean from the crown? And actually, since both of you have been multiple crowns, what does that sitting on the thrones? How does that fealty affect you from the throne side?
So we are a kingdom that we are unscripted, right? As in, there are some kingdoms where this is the script, and thou shalt follow the script, and thou shalt not deviate from the script, right? We're not that kingdom. And one of the things that we love is watching how our crowns do their coronation, and how they do write some of that script for themselves, right? Our fealty oath, our crown fealty oath, is unscripted as well. That's typically written by each of the crowns, often representative of their personas. When we stepped down last time, we were followed by a Mongol named Yuri the Yak Slapper, and the oath of fealty that he had, yeah, Yuri's pretty awesome. And the oath of fealty that he had, it had the word fealty in it somewhere, but it was like this whole litany of, it was very much Mongol based oath of fealty. So we have the option to write our own. My take on that has always been, you can say whatever you want for your crown oath, but in that crown oath, you will absolutely have the word fealty. It will be in there, because that is, to me, that is the entirety of coronation. Is I'm swearing fealty. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors and show and display, and giving somebody some good theater. But the fealty from the crown to the people is the essence of coronation in my eyes. And so our last coronation, so there were some weather concerns. Like the week before coronation, we had literally a whiteout snowstorm that covered the entire kingdom. So we ended up having to postpone coronation and have it at another local event, and so everything was kind of shortened, right? So we kind of had to throw out the script. So the fealty oath that I wrote for that reign was basically a cut and paste from Kapora. You go to the duties and responsibilities section of Kapora that says the duties of the crown. Basically did a cut and paste on that. And my fealty oath was, I am going to do what Kapora says is required of me to do, and that will be my fealty oath. One of the first things in there is to strengthen and uphold the laws of the kingdom, right? And so as far as what I am providing to the populace, that's one of the first things right out of the gate is I'm going to support and strengthen the laws and customs, traditions of, the kingdom, SCA law, mundane law, and also in there is I'm going to try to create a space that is inviting for all members of the populace to take part in what we do. So if you look in the duties and responsibilities under the crown, that's what I was doing. I was like, this is what I promised to you. This is what I'm going to do for you. And so as the crown, in my estimation, is the first servants of the kingdom. Yeah, I'm gonna do what our bylaws tell us to.
Cover.
As far as the East Kingdom, we're the same thing. We're unscripted. Different people say different things. It really, like Sean said, it's an individual thing.
Right.
And for the most part, the only thing that continues on is swearing to serve the kingdom and the people of the kingdom. I'm not sure if the word fealty is in there, but it is swearing to serve the kingdom and the people therein. And same thing. It's the same job. Your job is to help everybody else enjoy the totality of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me adjust the question. So what, as far as when you're sitting on the throne, so you as a Master of Arms having not sworn fealty,
okay,
and then sometimes having, so you sort of see both sides of swearing fealty,
right?
Then when you're sitting on the throne, how does that fealty affect you differently, receiving it versus giving it? I think it was sort of the question I was going for.
Okay. Realistically, I don't see a lot of a difference of it. For a lot of people, once you've done it a few times, a lot of people do have their own same personal speech they do every time. And it's like, this is my fealty, and they have their thing that they do. And it's fine. From my point of view, I more look at it is what are you doing? You can say whatever you want. I mean, you can promise the world, but what are you doing? I'll give you a prime example. I mean, this one happened my first reign. We're getting near the end of our reign. My wife is at this point 3 months pregnant. We're packing up after an event. And I literally had a knight that swore fealty, and he was just like, I am your man in all things, the whole 9 yards. And he comes into the royal room. He's like, I'm heading out. Just wanted to say goodbye. I was like, cool. Any chance you can get some guys and give us a hand packing the car? Because I don't want my wife packing the car. He's like, oh, man, I'd love to. But we got reservations at the steakhouse down the road. And there's a bunch of people waiting for me. So I'd like to, but I got to go.
Right.
Like, really? You can't? Okay, hey, whatever. You do what you do. I have literally been on the flip side of that. I've gone into a royal room. I'm like, Your Majesties, we're heading out. Is there anything I can do to help? We got a lot of stuff to pack. Okay, you wait here. I'll be back. I'm going to see how many guys I can get because I want to get out of here. So I'm going to see if I can get 10 or 15 guys to help do this.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, you can say whatever you want.
Right.
You can do the whole shtick and speech in front of the court and make it as flowery as you want. I've literally had people put swords to their throat and handed me the hilt. I'm just like, whoa, okay, this is a little weird, but okay, if this is your stick, please hang on to the other end of this thing for God's sakes. I don't know how sharp this thing is, dude. You just handed this thing to me. What are you doing? I had a very good friend of mine hand me a spear, and he put the tip in his throat. I'm like, what the heck? A spear? And it is what it is.
Right.
And that's fine. And to me, that's more like court show. It's a show for the populace. This is court, king swearing fealty. Again, like the totality of the whole medieval thing. But for me, it's what do you actually do? Do you swear fealty, go home, and then bail on the SCA for the next 6 months because you don't particularly like me? Okay, that's your call. You're not doing much for the kingdom, but okay, it's up to you.
Yeah, and that's a question that often comes up too. Is as a knight, what happens? What do I do if
You don't like the guy.
If I don't like
Yep.
the guy, right?
Yep.
Well, first off, I'll give counsel where I think counsel will be accepted, and try to make that guy, try to give them the best opportunity they can of serving the kingdom. But barring that, one or two things. You can either go watch hockey, or you can serve your kingdom in the absence of the crown.
I have literally gone to a king that I didn't agree with very well, and gave him what I thought was really good advice on what he should do differently than what his norm would be to do in certain situations, knowing there's no way he's going to listen to me. There's no way. But I'm going to tell him my honest opinion. This way, okay, I think I've done my best. Whether you listen to it or not is your business. But I've said what I'm going to say, and I'm still going to be there. You may not like me, but I'll be around.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times too, when we see crowns that maybe we're not happy with, especially those of us that have sat the thrones, we understand that there is information that the crown may have that we don't necessarily have access to. Yep. And we may disagree with what they're doing, but we may not have all the information that they have in the decisions that they make. And a lot of times, if we in Artemisia, I think, I don't mean to speak for all of our chivalry, but we are more likely to have a chat with the gentleman after they step down than we are in, barging into the kingdom or barging into the royal room and saying, this is how things are going to be. But yeah, otherwise you can serve the kingdom without really having any contact with the king and queen at all.
Yep, straight up.
It's a big kingdom. It's a big kingdom, and the kingdom has needs, and the crown can't be everywhere anyway. So if you don't like the crown, if you really don't like them that much, when they come to your barony for an event, there are other events that you can go to and serve the kingdom that way, if that's what it comes to.
Well, and see, there's the difference in you and I. I'm the annoying person that when they come to my barony, I'm like, oh, you're coming here? Really? Okay. Good luck. This is going to be interesting. Because I will not, like you said, I'm not going to barge into the royal room and tell you, listen, you are screwing this up 8 ways of something. No, Your Majesty, you think maybe you might want to try this method of putting this information out because it's coming out really overbearing. I'll do something like that instead. And I've been told, you don't know what you're talking about, leave. Fair enough.
Weird.
No problem.
I mean,
I've done what I can, and you don't want to listen to me. That's good, but I'm still going to be around, and you're going to know my opinion about things.
Yeah, I've had some of my very, very good counselors give me basically well, Your Majesty, maybe that sounded better in your head.
I've been told that more than once.
Yeah, maybe that seemed like a good idea in my head, and maybe in practice, maybe not so much. And we need those people.
Yep. Right. Oh, without a doubt. I've apologized a lot more than once for saying something I shouldn't have. It is what it is.
Yep. Sometimes you get the little thing. It's like, Your Majesty, I don't mean to tell you how to do your job, but I'm going to tell you how to do your job.
Yep. And you listen to them and you sit there and think about it and go, oh, that's how that came out? Yeah. Oh, that is not how I meant to say that.
Not what I'm.
Oh, man, I got to go find this guy, man. Wow. Did I really sound like that when I said that? Oh, I got to go. I got to go find this guy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it out there. If I ever win crown, please God, tell me when I do that, because I'm going to do that constantly. That is my life. And I'm on YouTube, so, it's fun. It's recorded forever. All right. So actually, Sean, I have a follow-up question for you about that. So I've heard, and this is this rumor and SCA legend as it is, can a knight put down his chain and belt for a reign? Can you temporarily resign your peerage if you don't want to swear fealty?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, I want to see where that was going.
and that's what I thought the answer was, but so let's talk about that.
So there is, having someone hold your regalia in abeyance, right? which is typically when you screwed up so bad that
Yeah, I've seen it I've heard of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you weren't acting so knightly, and so maybe we need to hold your belt and chain for a bit and see if you can pull your shit together and like figure out what it was that you were doing that was not knightly. But yeah, this idea of, oh well, I'm just gonna I'm just not gonna, I'm gonna show up at events and I'm not gonna have my belt and chain on. No, that doesn't work. If we hear people all the time, it's like, oh well, if this person wins crown, I'm gonna give back my belt and chain, or if this
Oh
person
God,
gets
yeah.
knighted, I'm gonna give back
Yep.
my well, if you're gonna turn in your belt and chain, you need to have the balls to write the letter to the board of directors, saying that you are resigning your peerage, because that is the only way that your peerage is actually resigned, is when you write the board of directors and you say, I'm resigning this peerage. I'm no longer a member of the chivalry, or what have you. But like I said, as knights, we are in fealty in perpetuity, right? Which generally means that I I usually look forward to taking that opportunity to swear fealty to the new king and queen, right? Um, but if that opportunity doesn't come up for some reason, or if I don't make that opportunity, I'm still in fealty, right? So when we have the knights come up at coronation and swear fealty, it is a reaffirmation of our fealty. It is not, I mean, with Balfar, it is, I am swearing fealty for this block of time to this king and queen, right? And then at the end of that, if the next crown happens to be somebody he would like to swear fealty to, he is, swearing his fealty, but it's not in perpetuity and it's not expected. Ours always is. If for some reason I don't get to an event that the crown happens to be at, I'm still in fealty to the crown, right?
Oh yeah, the times I've sworn fealty, when the particular people I swore fealty to step down, I took my chain off.
Right.
It's not a big deal. Everybody I've ever done it to, nobody ever thought it was a slap.
Yeah.
It's just this is the way it is.
No, but for a knight to put down their belt and chain,
oh, that's huge. Oh yeah.
Your better option is to go watch hockey.
Right. Mm-hmm. Just be gone for 6 months.
Just be gone. If
Stay home.
It is that bad for you, if that crown is that bad for you, be somewhere else.
Yeah. Interesting.
Spend your weekends watching sports.
Right. Yeah. Football for those of us in not Canada.
But he's not in Canada yet.
I'm not in Canada. I'm just
not yet.
I'm a little further north, but not quite Canadian land. Actually, Balfar is farther north than I am.
Oh yeah.
Nah, I like blaming you better.
So we had an interesting comment come up. That's sort of it's a bit of a joke, but it's not. I've heard this reason being someone took a baldric, is they could not swear to anyone who just had a good day every 6 months, right? Because that's all it takes to be crowned. One good day, one good day of fighting. I mean, we're not going to talk about all the training and time and effort that goes into that one good day, but realistically, is you had one good day. So I get that as a point of not wanting to swear fealty. And also, let me apologize for our Silent Herald. Apparently, she's having some connection issues tonight. So just if you're out there watching and need a Silent Herald, although you can't understand what I'm saying right now, probably. So sorry, she's having problems. Okay, so I think that's a good point. Why some people don't. All right.
Well, that statement is literally why I didn't get knighted until I stepped down from my first reign. I kind of came out of nowhere.
Right.
I mean,
gotcha. Okay.
The people I was fighting against, because I kind of developed a new way of fighting two-weapon back in the late 80s and early 90s. And a lot of my friends were just like, dude, are you ready to win crown? And I was telling them, get out of here, man. You're out of your mind. I've never been to a crown, dude.
I'm just making this shit up.
I quite literally, I went to my first crown and I won it. And I recall several occasions, my prince looking at me at a Shiv meeting, go, Your Majesty, you need to leave so we can talk behind your back. And I was like, fair enough.
Fair enough.
And a knight that I had gotten to know over the last like year and change, really good, solid man, Duke Balfar, had come up to me. He said, you know, we had a Shiv meeting, and I know things get out. I know they do. It happens all the time. So I want to tell you face to face, when they asked about getting united, he goes, and you're not an idiot. I know you figured this out. That's what we're talking about. He said, I did say no. You know, you had a really good day. And I looked at him and said, you're right. I had a really good day. And that is not a reason to knight me. Not even close. You know, don't knight me before I step up just because I had a good day. If I'm ready, I'm ready. And if I'm not, so be it, whatever. So it literally went that way for me.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, and I think we talked a bit about prowess in previous episodes, things like that. So yeah, clearly you have the prowess. That was not a problem, but you had not shown that enough yet to be on their radar. Clearly, so
a lot of the chivalry hadn't seen me out there fighting 2-weapon. I was mostly known for melee fighting.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I had one of my squires win crown unbelted as well, and we had an inkling that that was a possibility, and he and I had that discussion early on. Is like, if you end up winning crown before you are knighted, you're going to step down as an unbelted king. Cool. We're not going to knight you before you step up. We're not going to knight you during the reign. You will step down as an unbelted king.
Yep. I was an unbelted count for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Fair. But at least you got that 10 minutes, right? That's what matters. You got that 10 minutes.
Well, honestly, for me, it was frustrating because we did the whole ceremony and he stepped up and I walked all the way out this long hall and I'm about to turn and head for the doors because I know there's beer and pizza waiting once I get in my car. And he called me back in. And I turned around, I said, you waited till now? Really? He said, come here. Okay, I'm coming.
I was just there. What happened, right?
Exactly. I was there just a minute ago, dude. Really?
Oh, that's funny. All right.
Yeah. Oh, it was.
So, Sean, you brought up a good point. I think it's a good transition there. What about squires? So, so in Meridier specifically, and I'll speak for what I know, and then we can kind of address the other kingdoms. So, a lot of our squires swear fealty through their knights, and it's part of their. So we actually, and I'm going to break some brains. Our squires in Meridiers wear squire chains. I'm not wearing them. I know it's a thing, right?
Oh my God, no! Say it isn't so.
It upsets some people. Our squires wear chains as a show of their fealty to their knight, and their knight shows fealty to the crown.
It is what it is.
I think it's a neat thing personally, but I get why there's some reservations about it. Specifically,
do they still do that in the East, Balfar? I know that you guys used to do.
We
used to be a thing
way back. Okay. For the most part, not really. If somebody does, okay, it's not looked down on. It's not. It's just it's a thing,
Yeah. So the question came up and this came from let's see, let me find the name here. Duke Vic Vikingson, Edward Vikingson, squire to Duke Vic Vikingson. So does your fealty to your squires and their fealty to you extend outside the SCA? And I'm going to sort of add to that a little bit. How does your fealty affect your squires and vice versa? So let's talk about both in and outside the SCA, how fealty affects your squires. And we'll let Balfar go first this time.
Okay, for me, I do have my squires swear fealty to me. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yep, all of them do. It's and also I did to Pharaoh. It's basically going out and stating that yes, I am your man.
Right.
In my case, I choose to do it by action. My squires, you don't have a choice. And the same way I was taught, I teach my guys. You serve the kingdom, regardless of anything else. You're in fealty to me. You serve the kingdom. If the king asks you to do something, and I find out you booked out, I will know about it, and we will discuss it at practice,
right,
at length. So, as far as outside of the SCA, for me, it's completely different. It's It's apples and oranges.
Right.
Outside of the SCA, we're friends. We hang out. We talk. Just it's a completely separate thing. Outside of the SCA, we're friends. Inside of the SCA, you are my man. You represent me, and I in turn represent you.
Interesting.
Yeah,
John?
yeah, pretty much the same thing. Outside the SCA, my connection to my squires is through our mutual friendship, not their pretend service to me.
Exactly. Yep.
In the SCA. Yeah, I mean, all of my squires are my friends, and many of them, most of them start out as more student-teacher relationship, but eventually they turn into, not just friends, but I can usually tell when one of my squires is ready to be knighted when they start giving me counsel, because they have learned enough about how the SCA works, that when I get some harebrained scheme going on, one of my squires like, well, you might want to give that some consideration. And quite frankly, all of them have done it at some point, because they had learned enough about how the SCA works, that they are able to give me counsel that is coming from an educated perspective. And I've been very lucky in that regard, in that they have grown to that point, and that they got comfortable enough, and that our relationship made them feel comfortable enough that it's not my way or the highway. It's not I'm the Lord and Master and you do what I say. When it comes to their martial prowess, I still tell my former squires, it's like, you got to fix this thing, because I know that they want to be better fighters. But when it comes to, certainly once they're their own knight, I will give them counsel as I do any of my other friends. But this kind of leads into the idea of you were my squire, and so now you're going to vote the way I want you to vote. That's just bullshit. That doesn't. We don't do that at all. I mean, I've had several of my squires become king, and they've made decisions that I have told my former squire, like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I'm just telling you, I think you're crazy. I'm gonna back you in public, but I think you're crazy. And we have those discussions, I differ with my former squires in council all the time.
See, you got the fancy council stuff. See, what I'm used to hearing is I'll be doing something like, hey, guys, I got an idea. And I hear a little voice over my shoulder. Hey, boss, you really sure that's a good idea? Are you sure, boss? I'm like, okay, I'll rethink this before we do this. But that's usually what I hear.
Yeah. Yeah. But that relationship outside the SCA is based on our mutual friendship.
Right.
And the relationship inside the SCA still has that friendship component. I mean, you want to be friends with your squires. And it's, there's not really anything that, I can't remember a time in any of the squires that I've had where I've said, you're going to do this because you're in fealty to me. Again, fealty is
I've never said that. Yeah.
It's a contract. It's a two-way contract where, and like when I take a squire and the fealty that we swear to each other, I ask my squires to, part of their fealty oath to me is, because it's like, I give you something, you give me something, right? That's the contract.
I give you training, you give me service.
Exactly. And I've always told my guys, and my female squires as well. So the two things I ask for them are service and obedience. And when I say obedience, I don't mean, you're going to give me a ride to the event, you're going to pay my site fee sort of nonsense.
Yep.
I mean, when I tell you, when I see that you're in a plateau and you're fighting, and I tell you that you're going to fight left-handed for 6 months, you say, yes, sir. Right. And part of that relationship is they need to know that everything that I'm going to do for them is I'm everything I ask of them is in their best interest, in their path towards chivalry, right?
Yep.
Um, I've told all of my former squires and all my squires, I will never ask you to do something simply for my own amusement. Although I may be amused at some of the things I asked you to do, that's not why I'm asking you to do it. I'm not telling you to fight left-handed for 6 months because I think it'll be funny. I'm
Yep.
asking you to do it because you're in a plateau and you don't know it and you don't know how to get out of it. And we need to fix something in your fight. And so that's the type of obedience that I'm talking about is, when I say you're gonna fight with this shield until it breaks, and you're gonna fight with this shield until it breaks. I just expect them to know that everything I do is in their best interest. And, again, it's not so much the my way or the highway, but it's like, I know what I'm doing here.
Yep.
So, trust me on this. And in return, I give them my protection. Like if I've got one of the other members of the chivalry is talking shit about one of my squires, I'm gonna step up and say something.
Yep.
I am going to represent them in council, but my representation in council is a little bit different in that I expect them to be brought up on their own merits. I will never bring up one of my students in the circle. And in fact, most of the squires that I've had that have been knighted have been shot down by me before they got knighted because they didn't meet the standard that we have. And part of that fealty oath is you will be knighted under the standard in which you and I agree. And that standard simply is that you will be demanded into the order. You will not be accepted in the order. You're not going to get knighted because we haven't knighted somebody in a while. And I guess this guy's okay. You're going to get knighted because why haven't we knighted this guy yet?
Right. So I found an interesting thing the other day, Sean, about the Meridian Chiv. Apparently, it's custom Meridies that the knight has to be the one to bring their squire up.
Really?
So apparently that is Meridian Shiv tradition is only the knight can bring their squire up in council or for a weight. So,
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
that is.
I heard that from Graf Ulrich actually. He was talking on the Hounded Stag the other day. It's part of their tradition.
Well, I know in in Kal-bardr, when they are making an offer to somebody, they will have their peer beg the boon.
Right.
And that's kind of a thing where the if your knight would go to the crown in court and say, Your Majesty, I'd like to beg a boon, and that you would add my squire to the order of chivalry.
Right.
So that's a little different, though. I don't know how their customs work as far as how they get brought up and how they get noticed.
Right. We've done that in the East, but usually by the time you get to that point, it's already a done deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
it's done more as like a court shtick than a real thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And there's definitely something to be said for being able to once the crown has decided that they are going to knight your squire, being able to stand up in front of everybody and say, Your Majesty, I beg a boon, and making that request. Yeah. And in the East, you guys do letters of writ, right?
Sometimes. It's become more popular recently. And by recently, I mean like in the last 4 years.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was done previously, but I mean, so seldomly as to barely even be recognized, kind of a thing. A lot of times you like in the past, you do a writ kind of thing. For example, a guy's getting knighted and he's already talked to his Shiv and said, listen, I can see the writing on the wall. I know where things are heading. If this happens, I really need to know ahead of time because, for example, I really want my mom and dad there.
Right.
Yeah. We've got 3 kids and I don't want to be dodging my kids all day. So I've got to arrange daycare if we're going to the event, that kind of thing. So then a writ would go out. Recently, it's become like an explosion. It's happened a lot recently.
And we'll do that. We'll do an extended vigil, but not necessarily the writ. So
Yeah,
Anyway,
I was well, we've apparently a thing I found out about recently. I've only since the pandemic become an associate. I'm a protege to Dame Sabella. I was told that it's a thing to have an in case of peerage document
yeah,
written up.
yeah, absolutely.
In case I
Oh,
get
wow.
elevated, here's what I want. And I was like, that's a
Oh,
thing.
gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, so if it's gonna happen, here's what I would want to happen. So you have it planned ahead of time, apparently.
Yeah, and
So,
I've typically when I see that my squires are getting close, I've told them it is not unreasonable for you to create a knighting outfit.
Right.
If there is clothing that you would like to have, it is not unreasonable for you to be considering that, and they get it to me, and I will take it to an event as necessary for it to be there.
Wow, you're nice.
Yeah, it's like, wow.
I am. I'm very
Nah, my
generous.
guys get nothing like that.
They show up in their dirtiest clothes. All right, so
Well,
Okay.
your knighting clothes, yeah. There's a vigil tunic, and
Yep.
I hope you brought garb, dude.
Armor is garb, right?
It can be, and in cases it's had to be, but yeah.
all right, so we're just at an hour, but I have one question that I think is an interesting one to end on, and then we'll do some final thoughts in a minute. But this actually transitions a bit to our next episode because our next episode we're going to talk about that real quick is the red belt. So we're talking about squires and how that relationship affects things, and do you need one? Do you need to be a squire to be knighted and all that? So I think that's going to be a really interesting episode. But I do want to. I think both of you talked about fealty and your squires swearing fealty to you. So the Black Duke brought a thing up in the. I have to. I am now Outlands enough. I can do that. It's okay.
Okay, all right.
So I've been hanging out with him way too damn much. I'm just going to say that. I love me some Outlands. But so he talks about first of all, he resigned his squire's belt after winning Cornet, and his squire resigned his belt upon winning Crown.
Yep.
So what's your thoughts on that? So with your squires swearing fealty to you, if one of them were to win Crown, how do you handle that?
I dealt with it. I was an unbelted king. I mean, I literally, when I won Crown, I was Squire de Farrell.
Right.
And I was kind of off on the side trying to figure out what I had just gotten myself into. I mean, that was the first Crown I'd ever even seen. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? And I was getting out of my armor, and Farrell comes walking up, and I remember because I looked at him, I said, I don't know why, but it really seems wrong for me to wear this. And I handed him back my squire's baldric. And he just kind of smiled and shook his head. He goes, you have no idea how right you are. I mean, you really don't know. And that is the way it goes.
Right.
We've had one other guy since. It was 27 years between unbelted kings. The last one was fairly recently. Ozar, was an unbelted king, and he also turned in his squire's belt. Yeah, you do. You can't be in fealty to somebody else and be king. Right. Doesn't work.
Nope. Creates a fealty circle, and it doesn't really function well.
It just doesn't work. Nope.
Yeah, I've had prior to my squire winning Crown while he was my squire. Duke Timmer was a landed baron of our local group while he was squire to me as well. He did not resign his belt in that time because there's part of it is like the fealty thing has never really been in question for me, right? Mm-hmm. If my squire is baron of our local group, I'm in fealty to the barony. I'm in fealty to the crown. They are the representatives of the crown. I am not going to ask my squire again with the. I'm not going to ask you to do something because you're in fealty to me, right? I'm not going to demand that my squire do something as baron because he's my squire, right? And when it comes to their training, and especially their martial training, they're still my student, and they're still my squire very much in that regard. And actually, while Timmer was baron, I had a one of our peers come to me and say, well, I need to talk to you about your squire. And I was like, okay, what did my squire do? And he starts talking to me, and turns out it's all this stuff that that the Baron did. And I was like, you don't need to talk to me about my squire. You need to talk to your Baron about your problem.
Yep.
Right.
Or to the king about his Baron, one of the two.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if my squire's out there screwing around on the field, and and if he's embarrassing me that way, then I will have a talk with my squire about that. But this is a problem with a peer, with their Baron. It's like that's a totally different conversation. It's really easy for me to segregate those things. When Michael won crown unbelted, we didn't really talk about it, but he surrendered he put his belt in abeyance, his squire's belt in abeyance while he was king, and then when he stepped down, he put it back on, because when I take a squire, it's like I'm making you a squire so that you can become a knight, not so that you can become king, right? And there's as Balfar knows, there's a lot more to being a member of the chivalry than just winning a list, right? And having a good day, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, he took his belt back after he stepped down. I can tell you the Outlands is something of an anomaly in this regard, where when somebody who is not a peer comes to a position of responsibility, whether it's a local barony or winning coronet or crown or what have you, they sever that relationship, and like pretty much indefinitely.
Really?
After that, because as His Grace Johann was saying, when he won coronet list, he resigned his squire's belt, and he never took up a squire's belt after that. And that's something that they do in the Outlands.
Gotcha.
Not quite my flavor, but I kind of get where they're coming from, and and part of that too is like, if somebody thinks that if my squire is Baron, and I've had a couple of my squires who've been Baron, if somebody thinks that I'm going to be the power behind the throne, pulling the puppet strings, they're going to think that whether they have a red belt or not.
Right.
That's a fact.
Right.
Yep. Just by association.
Right.
Just by association. And there's nothing I can do to change that opinion, including severing a relationship with my friend.
Yep.
Right. Somebody who is still my student in the martial arts. Like, my relationship isn't going to change with him. The only thing that's going to be different is whether or not they have that belt, and that just doesn't sit well with me. And because, like I said, people are going to think what they're going to think, and anybody who is talked to any of my former squires who have been in a position of power, when you find out how much we do disagree on certain things, there's no puppet strings. There's no power behind the throne there, because as Balfar was saying, you get that look, you're like, hey boss.
Yep.
Maybe not.
Well, and also to his credit, when I turned in my baldric to Farrell, when I did actually hand it to him, he said, listen, if when you step down it's still necessary, this is waiting for you.
Yeah.
Were his words to me.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was an unbelted count for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I mean, it did end up becoming an issue.
So you put it back on and take it back off, put it back on. Yeah. It's just revolving baldric. I've heard similar stuff with peers when if they become a pelican and are still on the knight path. They don't, they have a knight that is their sponsor, but they don't associate directly because of that whole you can't be in fealty two different directions conversation thing, I think, is another thing. So I've heard that from that side as well. That's interesting. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we're just about out of time. I'm going to do a little bit of business, and then we'll do some final thoughts. So, all right. So for those of you watching out there, first of all, thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been a great conversation. I want to first of all ask you out there to smash that like button down there in the below places. If you're on Facebook, click it there. If you're on YouTube, click it there, and then swap platforms and do it again. We like those likes. It makes me feel good. It gives me a little serotonin rush. So thank you for that. Coming up on Kal-bardra's Corner, I'm actually taking the week off. Well, at least part of the week off for my normal Wednesday show. But you people are in for a treat. So what you playing Wednesday will be Viking Age Amusements, hosted by Baron Logan Pathwarden and Dan McKinnahild. Will be
Nice.
dropping some knowledge on us. So they're going to take over. It'll be a little different format, but it should be a fun day. And then next Sunday, so I was going to be doing a 12-hour live stream, but because of a new job, I had to cancel that. Also, by the way, that's why I'm in a weird background thing and my green screen's all there because rearranging offices. But I will be still on next Sunday. And to continue on this sort of nightly conversations, Coffee with Kal will be Nightly Virtues today. So I'll be joined by Sir Zygmunt Zipser, or Zippy, to discuss sort of how we take the nightly virtues and apply them in today's modern, both SCA society and sort of in the modern world. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. He has a lot of knowledge about the virtues and sort of what they are. I think that'll be a real fun talk. And then, of course, for our next What Makes a Knight episode, we alluded to it earlier, but we're talking about the red belts. What it means to be a squire, do you need to be a squire, and all of that. We're joined by Duke Balfar. And from what Sean tells me, and again, I am blessed to have some amazing guests on this show, and Sean has just thrust some awesome people into my life, and I'm sure that next week's guest will not be an exception to that. So that's that. All right, so... Oh, and last but not least, if you're interested in helping out KK Productions and all of the shows we sponsor and support, look up patreon.com/KK Productions and join the grand wall of patrons.
Hey, looks like there's a new name on the list.
Our second... I know, right? It looks like a Duke Sean Kirkpatrick right there. So I think you were my first night level patron.
There you go.
So that was a funny one for me.
I mean, you didn't have a Duke level patron, so
thank you for that, Sean. Hold on, I got you. I'll fix that later. I got you.
Okay.
That's actually so off topic for a moment. I was actually concerned when I was setting up those Patreon levels because I was like, they're named after chess pieces, right? That was the original goal. But I was like, but we're in the SCA. Knight's a thing. Like that's a thing that means something around here. And I was like, oh, do I want to do that?
So am I really the first knight that is a level patron?
Yes, you're my first
That's
knight
awesome.
level patron. Yeah, I've had a couple since then, but yeah, I think you were my first. I thought it was just funny. So
I mean, personally, my thought is if they don't have a sense of humor, they just need to get over it.
Yeah.
Bingo. I like that. So anyways, patreon.com/KK Productions and help support all the stuff we do here on Kal-bardr's Corner and all of the affiliated channels. All right, that's all my business. So gentlemen, final thoughts on Fealty. Give me your one line, your elevator pitch about Fealty and what we need to know about it. Give me that. Sum it up. We'll let our guests go first. Balfar, go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, me? Oh, great.
Well, I'll let you go first because Sean will talk for 20 minutes. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I was planning on him burning out the time.
Right.
I don't fill in the gaps.
For Fealty, mine is pretty simple. I said it before. Mean what you say what you mean. Don't beat around the bush and stuff. Don't tell somebody that you're gonna, move the world for them. And if you do say something, do it. That's it.
There you go. Yeah. John?
So Fealty as it relates to this series in particular, again, as Kal mentioned, the first episode we had, people say, what about Masters at Arms and what it takes? This entire series has been about the things that are not fighting related, that are part of becoming a knight, becoming a member of the Order of Chivalry. The requirements to be a Master at Arms are precisely the same as they are to be a knight, and the only difference is the fealty. And a lot of the responsibilities as a peer in our society are also exactly the same. And I think there's some common misconception out there that masters get a pass somehow on peerage responsibilities. Like, you're still a peer. You're a peer just like Laurels. You're like Pelicans, like Order of Defense. You're still a peer. And the peerage itself has certain duties and responsibilities. And again, going back to episode 1, what does Kapora say? Yeah, go take a look at all that. Take a look at what the duties and responsibilities of a peer are in general, and you'll get a better idea of it. But it's, the requirements are exactly the same. But having said that, I want to say that I appreciate that question came up and that it's come up several times. Because it is a absolutely valid question. I do not want to dismiss the validity of the question at all. And for that, I am very glad to have had Balfar join us for this. When I thought about doing this episode, Balfar was I know a lot of Masters at Arms, and Balfar was the one guy that I wanted to have on for this conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
There you go. All right. So yeah, with that, we'll close it out. Thank you all for joining us. Yes, definitely. Thank you, your Grace Balfar, for joining us. You again been an amazing guest, and I appreciate the wisdom you've shared with us. And of course, Sean, thank you as always for doing this. And
thank you, Kal. And this is the first episode of bonus material. Bonus
Material.
Yeah.
I'm afraid
we originally had done 8 episodes, and this is the first one that we do that is bonus material. So I think we've got 2 more after this that we've got planned. So
I'm sure we'll find another one in there somewhere. And of course, last but not least, thank you to our Silent Herald Marie. Even though she had some connection problems tonight, she is amazing.
As always,
I like making her sign her own thank yous.
Yes, we always love Marie having to say thank you to herself. It's always fantastic.
All right. So with that, guys, we're going to sign off. This has been Sean, Balfar, Marie, and Kal in Kal-bardr's Corner. Night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.